Welcome to Stitchery Stories, where textile artists share their life in fabric and thread, inspiration, techniques, disasters and delights. And I'm Susan Reeks, enthusiastic embroiderer and textile arts dabbler who also loves podcasting. So take a break and enjoy our light-hearted chat, and please share with your friends so they can enjoy it too. Hello and welcome today to our lovely guest, Karin Ruane. Hi Karin.
Hi Sue.
Hi, it's lovely to speak to you today. Karin is another one of our guests who has actually, one of our listeners, had requested for Karin to be on. So thank you very much to Jamie Rose Campbell for requesting a Stitchery Stories chat with Karin. So I think that's always nice, isn't it, Karin, that somebody wants to find out more about us.
Yes, it's really nice. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you very much, Jamie. That's brilliant. So I've got a very short little bio here. Karin Ruane is an embroiderer inspired by women of the past who have used cloth and stitch as a means of comforting and protecting their families. She specialises in hand embroidery and really focuses on providing online classes to share her passion for embroidery and also the occasional workshop in London. And we were just having a giggle there by saying that the reason why Karin uses London is that she just get international people coming over to attend her workshops, and so therefore she wants a nice environment for them to go and do other things as well. So I won't say the rest of the conversation. But it was quite funny. So there we are. That's Karin in a very small nutshell. And before I forget, you can find more about Karin on her website, which is actually a typepad website. It's quite a long URL, so I'll include all of Karin's links in her episode on stitcherystories.com. But you can find Karin's website, and then Karin's also busy on Facebook and also on Instagram as well. So they're two good places to see what she's up to as well. So there we are. Welcome, Karin.
Thank you.
So before we get started with your Stitchery story today, would you like to share with us what you're working on and what's got you excited at the moment, Karin?
Well, at the moment I have a 12-month class running, which is unusual for me to have a class that runs for 12 months.
Wow.
But I ran a short course last year on creating artist books, and that was about creating a vehicle in book form for storing and displaying very small embroidery samples.
Oh,
and that class was so successful that they asked me to do one for 12 months. So I've been doing that recently. So I've recently finished one book as part of that. I've been going since September last year, and I've only finished one book. But that just illustrates how involved they are, and how crammed they are with inspiration and fabric and stitch. And then, as a result of that one book I've finished, which is on my blog, if you search for artist books in the link list on the right-hand side of my blog, it'll take you to that book. I decided to create overlays for each page. So what you have is paper pages with hand-stitched papers and fabrics on, but then in between every page, if you remember, an old wedding album may have had fine paper in between for protection. So I've been creating cloth protection for those pages as well. So not only are they a page with inspiring embroidery on, they then have this beautiful soft fabric open worked layer in between each page to protect those pages and that work. So because of that overlay sampling and working to finish this book, I am now focusing on the next class, which starts on the 16th of April, to create pieces of fabric that can be used for overlays within books or can be used as a piece of fabric to hand embroider onto. In the same way you would go to the shop and buy half a metre of cotton fabric, well, this is creating your own fabric instead of that half metre of mass-produced fabric. So that's what I'm focusing on at the moment. So I've got surrounded by lace and cotton scrim and muslin and, pretty things like that, and silk nets. And so that's what I'm focusing on at the moment.
Oh, lovely. What a nice idea, though, because we do all make all these, samples and try things out. And then, maybe it's just me. Then they go in like a plastic tub with a lid on, you know what I mean?
Shame on you.
I know. This is a really lovely idea to capture those things, and how nice to be making it into a long-running workshop.
Yeah, 12 months, I'm hoping. My aim was to make 6, not all the same, but 6 unique artist books within this 12-month period. So we're supposed to be finishing in September. This often happens with my classes. I'm slower than everybody else. So to catch up with them, because obviously I have other things to do to get the lessons prepared. You know yourself doing these podcasts. I have other calls on my time, whereas the people in the class can just spend their time creating what we're creating. So I get left behind in a sense. So I've just recently decided to extend it to the end of the year, only because I'm having so much fun and because I've got so many plans I need to cram in. So they're getting me for an extra 2 months free, which I don't know. You'll have to ask them whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. They might be sick of me by then. But it often happens with my classes that they overrun, and that's because I get carried away. So it's actually going to be 14 months when we actually finish.
Have you seen, are people submitting pictures of, because this is an online, isn't it? So have people been submitting what their ideas and how they're getting on?
It's amazing. We have a private forum on the internet. For every single class has their own private forum where they can upload images and take part in group discussions. And the thing that I absolutely love about my classes is that people make lifelong friendships through an internet online learning experience. I've had people meet up from Great Britain and Canada and Great Britain and the USA that have met through my classes, and then they've physically actually met because they've become so friendly. And the support network within that group is incredible. I mean, you can see somebody one morning might put a question on, I'm struggling sourcing some scrim, I don't know where to get it. Within half an hour they'll have 20 answers. People are so supportive, and then they can put their images in there as well, and I always appraise the images, and they also get feedback from the rest of the group. It's incredible, the support that they find within the group.
And that's really nice, and that's testament to the people taking part and to you organising it all as well, because I think sometimes people think, it's online, you can't really make proper friends and stuff, but all my work's online, and I actually, similar idea, I work with a company called VA Classroom. We're based in Canada, and I've taken their classes. I'm one of their mentors now. Same thing, answering questions and all the rest of it. But I realised one day I was doing one particular course, and then I realised the lady was basically, she lives in York and I'm on the coast in Hornsey, so she's about 45 minutes away. So we realised, so we actually have met up a few times, and then obviously she was a virtual assistant as well. So, and she really likes sewing, and she's actually now currently running a market stall. So it's quite interesting. But yeah, it's lovely to be able to make those friends and to take part in an online group like that. So brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I have people do my classes who've been doing them since day one, which is about 8 years, and they do every single class. And I think to myself, surely, are you not bored with me yet? Because, there's only so many things you can do with embroidery. To be fair, I do shake it up a little bit as much as I can, but very often the people who've been doing my classes for 8 years are doing something they've done already. But I think it refreshes you, because even I forget technique, and I look through work and I think, I could do that. So I think they come back and it refreshes, so that's a good thing. But it's like they also say to me, it's because of the interaction within the group, that camaraderie and that sincere friendship, even though it might only be online, I really take a lot from that.
And that's
love that
wonderful,
aspect,
and that's your main focus, as we said, isn't it? Running the online classes is the main vehicle that you have for sharing your work and kind of running your business. So, that's lovely, and I think you're a lot of people run online classes, but I think you're probably the first person I've spoke to almost exclusively runs online classes. So there's a lot of interesting feedback there, Karin. Thank you very much. So how did you first get interested in embroidery and textile art, and who taught you, and what sort of things that you do? Obviously, we mentioned there about being inspired by women of the past. How did you get going?
Well, when I was a child, one of my grandmothers was always knitting. My paternal grandmother used to knit and crochet a lot, and my maternal grandmother used to sometimes embroider the tablecloths that were pre-printed, with the the floral design. So I was always surrounded by people who did things like that. My mum actually used to make my clothes when I was little. I don't really have a lot of memory of that, but I've seen the photographs of that. And when I had my own children, I used to knit for them. I was more of a knitter when my children were small. So I used to knit for them all the time. They always had hand knit things. And then one Christmas, my mum bought me a cross-stitch kit for Christmas, and I was just hooked. So from this one cross-stitch kit that my mum bought me for Christmas, I began cross-stitching like everybody in the family had 5 pictures that I'd made, because I just became obsessed with it. And then I did a leisure class, and the lady who was running the leisure class, it was very informal, 2 hours a week in the afternoon, said, why don't you do your City and Guilds? So I did my City and Guilds. My children were still small. And then when I did my City and Guilds teacher said, you should go and do your degree. And I said, I can't do a degree. I had teenagers, and you know what it's like. You've got kids growing, you've got no money or anything. She goes, well, so I said to my husband, and he says, well, why can't you do your degree? I said, well, I don't know. So it went from there. So when my daughter went to university at 18, she went to Leeds. I went to university at the same time. I went to Bolton. I did a degree in textile surface design, and through doing my City and Guilds, I became obsessed with the hand embroidery. And although the degree was textile surface design, there was a lot of print and dyeing and drawing and things in it that I did them because they were part of the course, and I suppose I did enjoy them, but I always just wanted to stitch. So in the third year, you can make your own path, write your own prospectus kind of thing. So in the third year, I focused on the hand embroidery. So and I'm obsessed. I'm stitching constantly stitching. If I'm not stitching, I get withdrawals.
So if we don't see you with some nice embroidery in your hand, there's obviously something wrong with you then.
Definitely. Definitely. I haven't knit since my kids were like 5 and 6.
I'm an appalling knitter.
I don't even think I'd be able to do it now.
No, I've totally forgot. In fact, the knitting I finished, the last things I ever did was when I was a student. That's a long time ago. Knitting those like holy mohair fluffy jumpers in like hideous colours. I'm dating myself. Anyway, that was my last effort at knitting. I'm rubbish at knitting. My mum's good at knitting. I'm rubbish at it. So we alluded there to the inspirations of women of the past and using cloth and stitch to clothe their families.
Well, when I was studying an embroidery or any kind of textile degree isn't just happily sitting sewing for 3 years. Don't let people be fooled into thinking that. We had so much research and theory and writing to do. So I tried to gear most of my essays into the mother, grandmother, family use of needlework and cloth. With my grandmothers always in mind, because both my grandmothers brought their families up in the war, so it must have been very hard for them to get pretty things for little girls or nice coverlets for beds and things, and they had to scrape everything together, didn't they?
They did,
so it led me to research even way, 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 way back, where nomadic tribes sewing together animal skins, and people in the slums of London in Victorian times would hang quilts on the walls which would absorb damp from the walls so it wouldn't go on the children's chest. So it was all that kind of thing, and then it was
interesting.
It was contrasting that aspect of it with the Victorian woman in a parlour just making something pretty, and yet there was women in slums who were having to use rags to soak up wet off walls, you know what I mean, for the sake of the children's health, So there was a lot of in-depth research into things like that, the role of cloth in the mother and child relationship. So that wrote thousands of words. I didn't know I knew that many words.
It's very interesting though, and an interesting way of reflecting back that, yes, a lot of the work we do now is decorative, and we do it because we like making pretty things or interesting things, but, through history, it wasn't about the prettiness, was it? It was about the functionality in many cases. So
there's a quote that I used in one of my essays, and I can't think for the life of me what book it was, so I'm going to have to apologise to the author of that book. but it's not my words, it's words from this book, and it was about American pioneers, the women pioneers in America, the wagon trains and things.
Oh, yes.
And it says, women made utility cloths as fast as they could so their families wouldn't freeze, and they made them as beautiful as they could so their hearts wouldn't break.
Oh, what a lovely thing to say.
I mean, if we're having a baby, we make blankets for it, don't we? Or some people do. And we're doing that because obviously we want the baby to be swaddled and snuggled, but we also want it to be as beautiful as it can be. So it's that kind of thing, that kind of thought process.
Brilliant. That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Karin. That's a lovely way of thinking
quote.
about it. It's a beautiful quote.
Makes me want to cry, but I won't.
Oh. No crying today.
No,
yeah, it is. It is a lovely quote. Is that brilliant? So, being inspired by those ladies, do you have any modern inspirations that come through into your work as well, Karin?
I've always got my nanas in my head. Every time I saw, my nanas are in my head.
Oh.
So I like that it keeps me connected to them because they're not here now, you know.
Yes.
It's more about an obsession with both my grandmothers, to be fair, that I call Nana, and my own kids. And I keep my kids in my head. They're not kids anymore.
No.
But, you know, like when I was doing pieces for my degree, I would make a lot of wrapping cloths, and that would be my metaphorical way of creating something that I could wrap my kids in, keep them safe, even though they're not with me because they're grown up now. So, you know, I would say I'm still fixed in the past. Apart from, actually, I've just thought, I'm very inspired by the women who I come across who take my classes and the devotion they put into it, and the way they must think in a similar vein to me at some point in their lives to have chosen this as something to do and to have chosen this class. Does that make sense?
It does. That makes a great deal of sense. Yes. Taking part and making the community so lovely.
Yeah, and being so kind and generous in spirit and supportive. Yeah.
So therefore, what are your favourite techniques, Karin? You've said you focus, exclusively on hand embroidery. So what are your favourite techniques within there, and why do you like them so much?
Well, hand embroidery in and of itself is a technique as opposed to patchwork or quilting, etc. So basically it's a flat piece of cloth, and the technique is to embellish that with texture and hand stitch, etc. So I do occasionally use patchwork, but only, again, grandmother's flower garden patchwork, because that takes me back to my nana's. That's always appearing in my work somewhere. That's the only reason for that. I don't do any other kind of patchwork apart from that. So it's the stitch. The stitch is my favourite technique, and within that I have favourite stitches, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So bullion knot, French knots, buttonhole stitch, all the old favourites. I would say if you looked at my work on my blog, you would think I was a bullion knot obsessive. Because everything, people say I can do them in my sleep, which I probably can't. So, and it's so therapeutic, just repetitive bullion knots and French knots. Yeah, I find it very therapeutic.
I like French knots. Yeah, I like French knots. I have to say that they often pop up. And there was one piece I did. We did inspirations by. If you look at vitamins under the microscope, that's what we did our embroiderers group. And the one I picked, the middle of it, was just I thought that's going to be all French knots. And I did, all in different colours and stuff. And people saying, well, you're not filling all that in knots, are you? Yep, I certainly am. And I love doing it. I was quite sad when I thought, I can't cram another knot in now. Damn, I've finished.
It's so relaxing. I think they should prescribe embroidery on the NHS. Because it really does, it's so therapeutic.
It certainly is.
With the bullion knots, I don't know if you're familiar with bullion knots.
Yes.
But I think the recommendation is 8 or 10 wraps on your needle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I do 35 on mine. That's my normal, is a 35, because it creates a looped knot.
Yes.
That I'm obsessed with. I've occasionally been known to do 70 wraps.
Wow.
I taught a workshop in France a couple of years ago, and it was obviously French people. I do speak a little bit of French, but not a lot, and I had a translator.
Yeah.
So I said, so for the bullion loop, you wrap it around your needle 35 times. So the translator said, Trente-cinq, and to a person, every one of them went, Trente-cinq. And that's all they were saying all the way through the 2-day workshop.
Tutting and shaking their heads and shrugging their shoulders. Oh dear.
Well, try it. You'd be amazed. It's beautiful. Try it.
Yeah, no, I will do actually. And I've noticed a lot of loops on the pictures that you've sent me that we'll put on your episode. There's lots of loopy things going on as well. So
that'll be bullion knots. I can't remember those pictures now. I'm sorry, but there will be bullion knots. Yeah, bullion knot obsessive. And now I do 35 wraps. Then I put a sequin on and do another 35 wraps. I'm giving all my secrets away here.
Oh dear, right. So hence the 70 wraps, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be dashing off,
trying to find a needle big enough to get 100 on.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody can make me one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That'd be a super long one, wouldn't it? Or maybe
it would. Yeah.
Beading needles, but they're a bit flimsy, aren't they, really, for doing something like that?
No, I think the thing with a bullion knot is you've got to use a milliner's needle.
Yeah.
Because then the eye is the same width as the point.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, how are you going to pull your needle through all those wraps?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you've got to use a milliner's needle. That's another tip.
Oh, we're absolutely full of tips today. Brilliant. So, Karin, then obviously you'd gone through studying and going through your degree and stuff, as you say, later in life when your daughter had gone off to university and so on. So what would you say has been the high point of your textile art and embroidery journey so far, Karin?
I haven't got one because every day is a high point. And I know you people say that and you think, oh, don't be silly, that's really cheesy. But it's so true because I'm ensconced in my little 2 up, 2 down, I call it a cupboard in Lancashire. It's so small. I get up every day and I just sew. And that sewing might be on video or it might be to finish something that I need so I've got images for my blog.
Yeah.
But it's just what's not to love about that.
Well, that's fantastic. Every day,
yeah. So every day is a high point, and it sounds so cheesy that I feel like, oh, if somebody else said that, I'd be like, don't be ridiculous. But it's true. It's true. Like you can't lie, can you? No. Like I'm sitting here now we've got 2 rooms, we've got a back room and a front room. Yeah. I'm sitting here now in the front room, which is the dining room, and I've got the ironing board up, and it's piled up with lace and ribbon. And so when I finish that, I'm going to be cutting up lace and ribbon. So it's every day is my high point. Every day.
And that's wonderful, though, to be able to spend your time doing something that you love and that you view as every day being your high point, I think is absolutely marvellous.
I am so lucky, I can't believe it. I have to pinch myself sometimes. I really do. And in this room, which we also eat in here as well, it's like there's not a bomb site, but it's piled with embroidery stuff everywhere. Yeah. Looking around me, there's work I've finished hanging up on like cupboard doors. It's just amazing to be in here and to know I can spend all day in here.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. That's lovely. Yeah, that is a really nice high point to say every day is your high point because you just love doing what you're doing so much and that you feel so lucky to be able to spend your days doing it as well. So I think that's wonderful. Yeah. Now then, so since you spend quite a lot of time, all of your time, embroidering, do you have any stories for us, Karin, when something possibly didn't go quite as planned and was maybe a bit of a disaster, but importantly, what did you learn from that experience?
I have those experiences all the time. I think people tend to look, if you have an online presence, you're only going to really put your good stuff online, aren't you? You're not going to put your mistakes out there. Yeah. But I think any embroiderer, anybody who does textile work or dressmaking or anything will make mistakes. But the thing is, not to hide from those mistakes and to admit to them if they're public mistakes. And the reason I'm saying that is because if I'm doing a video for one of my classes and I do something catastrophically wrong, I don't edit that out, I leave it in. Because I think if I'm learning, they're learning. And that's another thing people have said to me about classes is you don't sanitize your classes. If you do something wrong, you share it with us, because if I do it wrong, the potential's there for them to do it wrong. So if they see how I come back from that, then they'll know how to come back from that too. So I can't think of a specific disaster as such that was catastrophic, but there's always something that you try and know that's not working. I'm going to disregard that, or I'm going to fix that by doing X, Y, or Z. So I'm sorry I don't have anything really that I can think of that's catastrophic as such. but it's a daily thing. Making mistakes is a daily thing, isn't it? Anyone who does embroidery will know that.
Yes.
Even if it's starting to work a piece and your background fabric doesn't live very well with your thread choice.
Yeah.
So you either change your thread or your background fabric, don't you?
Yes, very true.
And, so that happens every day.
I think with that, what I find really interesting out of what you've said there is the fact that when you're doing your videos, you make that conscious decision to not edit out some of those things. As you say, there's going to be scope there for somebody else to do the same thing, and therefore it's all part of learning. And yes, we do, to a large extent, learn from trying to do things and then having that desire to improve and keep on going and trying again, basically. And that's exactly how we learn, isn't it?
Yeah.
So have you been doing I quite like videoing and stuff. I was going to say, how do you get on with the actual process of videoing your work?
Do you mean logistically? I mean, I have a very small house, so this room I'm in now, I'm talking to you from, like I say, it's our dining room. It's my studio. It's got my computer and everything, so there's not a lot of room.
Yeah.
I do have a special light that I use, a portable light when I'm videoing, so that goes on one side of the table. The video camera goes on the other side. I've very often got the ironing board up as well, so I'm very tight for room.
Yes.
But I've been doing it for so long, it's just second nature now. So I'm aware of the limitations and what I can get out and use and what I can't get out and use. Does that make sense?
Yes, it certainly does.
It goes pretty seamlessly, to be honest, considering I live in a cupboard.
Yeah.
You get used to your space, don't you? And if you've been using that space for a long time, you could walk around it with your eyes shut, couldn't you, and not bump into anything. It's that kind of situation.
Yes,
You're comfortable and you're familiar, so it works fine.
Yeah.
So I tend to make my videos in the morning, not every day, maybe 2 days a week. I spend about 4 hours making videos, and then as you know, it's the uploading, isn't it? And then the like descriptive things you have to write on them, and then it's getting them onto YouTube, and and then editing them if they need light. I mean, I'd say I don't edit them, I lighten them if they're a bit dark and things like that.
Yes.
So I tend to do that 2 mornings a week, 2 hours of videos.
Yeah.
So that's 4 hours a week. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So I've just been doing some for, say, this VA Classroom, who I am one of their technical trainers as well. So I'm doing a series of, got a couple of things on the go. I've been doing some phone app tutorials. So videoing me with the phone in my hand doing it, and also videoing the phone screen at the same time, and then putting the 2 pieces of video on top of each other, sort of thing. So it's quite so my office is the conservatory, so I can't do anything like that if it's raining, because the noise on the roof is horrendous.
Of course,
so I've got the weather. People, well, why would the weather affect you recording your videos? Well, because if it's really noisy, I feel as if it's windy, I feel as it's going to blow away. And secondly, when it's raining, it sounds like people are throwing stones at me. So it's quite funny.
I do think some people I've never taken an online class. I've never actually taken one myself. But some people who do my classes will say to me, it's so relaxing and it's as if we're in the room with you.
Yes.
Because you might hear a car door slam out the front. Or if I've forgot my pencil, I'll say, I forgot my pencil.
Yeah.
And then I just say, because I do think it's like I'm with them. I'll say, talk amongst yourselves while I go and get my pencil.
Yeah.
and not even in the same room. But I'm just so relaxed when I'm doing it. And I think that's what a lot of people like, because it's not filmed by somebody else.
Yes.
And it's not a production as such. It's literally a fly-on-the-wall thing.
Yeah, that makes it very authentic, though, Carol, which is a very overused word, but it's very true. And then I think people get that connection. You're saying that people have been doing these classes over and over again through the years. Well, that's obviously why, isn't it? Because they feel connected to you and the process, as well as the other people that you've built that community around. So you obviously, as you say, you've got used to doing it, haven't you? And I think that's really nice to do it in that authentic way. As you say, it's not an edited out production, it's how it really is. But I think people find that engaging. People find that very engaging. So
I mean, one of the group once put in the discussion forum, I think we should make Karin put £1 in a jar every time she forgets something, and then by the end of the class we'll all be able to go to New York. Because I'm like, I can't believe I forgot my embroidery hoop. an embroidery without an embroidery hoop. And then I have to go in the other room and get the embroidery hoop. It's pathetic, actually. In fact, I'm probably putting people off. They're probably thinking she's incompetent. I'm not taking her class.
No, I think it just sounds really... And that's the thing about being online these days. I think we've moved on from the perfect, everything having to be perfect. Everything has to be real. And so don't ever be afraid of being real and being yourself.
Well, they definitely get that. They do get that, yeah.
Right. So what about unfinished objects? Do you have any of those lurking about anywhere, Karin, or do you use them all up?
I have one unfinished object that I keep getting so much grief about from one of the classes I did. And it's the kind of thing, I'm scared to go back to it now. I started a class probably about 4 years ago. And as I said, I'm all very involved with making wrapping cloths and wrapping my kids up and keeping them safe, metaphorically as such. Yeah. And I started to embroider silk squares, and my intention was to join them all together and make a big, almost like human-sized sleeping bag as a wrapping cloth for me in my head to put my kids in to keep them safe. And I'd actually made something similar when I was doing my degree. It was the same height as my son at the time, but this was going to be massive and voluminous and all this silk. And then I thought the best way to make this, not just because I was in a hurry, but to add body and weight to it, because it was just silk dupion and there wasn't a lot of weight there, and I'm not a quilter. So I've got a pleating machine, and I pleated meters and meters of muslin.
Right.
So it was alternated between, it was a piece of embroidered silk, about 12 inches square, then a 12 inches square piece of pleated muslin, and the weight of that against the silk was beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
So it's probably just over half big enough at the moment. And then I got involved in something else, and it went on the back burner.
Yeah.
And now I feel guilty that I haven't touched it for so long, and I'm frightened to do it again. Yeah. Because another thing is as well, when you start something like that, it's important. If I was to pick it up now and begin to work on it again, I would need exactly the same fabrics I was using for the applique, exactly the same colour thread, so it was cohesive and it was. Do you know what I mean? That it wasn't patchy and mismatched.
Yeah.
So I get so many comments about where, and that I called it as well. Some people don't like this, but I called it the body bag.
Right.
Because it was a bag for a body, but in a nice way.
Yes.
Not in the dead people way, in a nice way. Yeah. And I got so many scathing comments off people, not in my class, but say on Facebook, what are you calling that for? That's disgusting, blah, blah, blah.
Oh.
But now I get, when are you going to pick the body bag up again? And I feel so under pressure to do it that I'm frightened to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, there's this massive elephant in the room that is the body bag.
I'm glad you explained why you called it that, though. I can see.
Yeah. Now you've traumatised me bringing it up.
Oh, sorry. No trauma intended. Oh, it sounds lovely anyway. So, well, when I'm in my conservatory, in winter it's cold. I have heating, but and so I sit in a sleeping bag.
Well, yeah.
I
Well,
look like
there you go.
a homeless person sometimes. So what the hell's she doing sat there in that sleeping bag? Well, keeping me feet and my legs warm.
So the concept is probably quite an easy concept to come up with. Lots of people probably have done a similar thing. They just wouldn't call it the body bag, I guess.
Oh dear, yeah. And I don't think I've had anybody say they're frightened to pick up the
I'm really scared of it now.
Unfinished object. Yeah.
I'm really scared of it. It's upstairs. It's lovingly stored and preserved, and I'm frightened of it now, and I don't know if I'll ever finish it. So all the people that keep emailing me and mentioning it in comments, stop asking me.
Oh dear. Now, we mentioned elephants there. So what about the saying, Karin, about being beware of long-distant elephants? So projects that seem so far away, they creep up, and there you are, looming large in your small house. So how do you keep track of your projects and your coursework and so on, and keep yourself organised and stay creative?
I don't have anything looming large because I don't really work to a deadline. I don't work to commission, so that negates a lot of deadlines, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
Basically, I please myself, so I don't have deadlines as such, but I do sometimes, if I'm mostly pressured because of my blog, my presence on my public blog.
Yes.
Because a lot of my time is on creating things in class, and I can't make that image public until they've seen it in class.
Yes.
So,
yes.
for example, last night I was working on some pieces for the artist book class that I can't show until after they've had those videos on Wednesday.
Yes.
So that means I'm under pressure to create something else, so I've got something to feed my public blog. So does that make sense?
It absolutely does make sense. Yes. So you're almost that's the whole thing about when you're doing your social media or your online marketing. What's the job for that particular piece? So you've got creating stuff for your classes, and then you've got creating stuff for your public image to keep yourself going, to get more people involved in your classes. So that makes perfect sense, Karin. Yeah.
So my passion generally on a daily basis will be what I'm doing in class, and I'll be so fired up from making the videos, and I want to continue that. So I've got good progress to put in the images for them when they're getting the class on Wednesday this week in the artist book class. But that will mean I've had no time to create anything separate to go in my public space. So that is a lot of pressure. So how do I do that? Well, sometimes I just don't do my blog because I haven't got anything. That doesn't happen very often because I usually blog every day. But because I've been so prolific and obsessively embroidering for so long, it might be that I look around the house because there'll be something maybe I haven't shown before. I tend to be fortunate. Or I'm trying to make artist books in class. They sell very well if I sell them. So I'm putting together a couple that might go in the shop to be sold. I may work on one page for one of those, because that can take me about an hour and a half for one page, and use that to go on my blog. But my only pressure comes from what I can show in public. That's why I fall behind in class, That's why they can race ahead, because they don't have to think about
that. They're not thinking about keeping the public presence, online presence going as well. So
So there is a lot of pressure there, actually.
And that's, you've raised an interesting point there as well, which people don't often touch on. So thank you for looking at it in a different perspective. That was really nice to hear. Again, back to you're doing this every day. You feel so blessed to be able to do that every day. But then there's that other pressure. There's always some pressure somewhere, isn't there? Keep that public face going. So it's really interesting. So there we are. Normally I was kind of asking about future plans and projects and so on, but you say you don't kind of work to commission or exhibition. So what about your classes, your online classes, Karin? Have you got anything to share with us there? What's coming up just as we kind of wrap up today?
Right, well, the artist book class has been running since last September, but like I said, it's going to be going now till the end of December this year, and that you can sign up for that one anytime, because you will get access to everything that happens since last September.
All right, brilliant.
I host them on password-protected blogs. So if you would sign up for that, I would send you the password and the username, and you could go on there, and everything is on there from last September. You can still sign up for that now. You can sign up for that any time through to December this year. You'll have all that information. There's no set tasks, so I wouldn't want people to think, well, what if she said in September, do this by October? There's none of that. There's none of that. You just do what you want to do when you want to do it. And also, people have access to that forever.
Oh, that's worth knowing, yes.
But I know what it's like. Life gets in the way.
Yes,
and
yes,
you can't always get things accomplished in time. So, do it whenever. 5 years, 10 years, next week, it's entirely up to you. And then on the 16th of April, there's a new one starting, like I say.
Yes.
About creating that lovely soft embroidered fabric that can be used as an overlay in a book, or you can use it to stitch on to create something else. That starts on the 16th of April. So that's where I'm at the moment.
Right. Well, I'll put those on your episode, so then people have got those as well. Okay, well, Karin, do you know what? As ever, I could be sat here chatting all morning. Thank you so much for sharing your Stitchery story with us today. It's been really fascinating finding out more about you and your embroidery, and particularly the emphasis that you have on your online classes and how you go about that. So that's been a really interesting conversation that we've had. So thank you so much for that. Again, Karin's got her blog and she's got her Facebook and her Instagram page. The links are all be on the Stitchery Stories episode for Karin. So go ahead and follow Karin on Instagram and go and check out what she's doing on Facebook as well. So it's really, really lovely. So if you're in the mood for some really nice, pretty, there's lots of white, isn't there, Karen? And
lots of white,
so,
yeah.
It's lovely. It's really
Just
nice.
don't mention the body bag.
So on that note, thank you very much, Karen. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you, I enjoyed it. All right,
Cheers,
thanks, bye.
If you liked this episode and want to hear more, then please join the Stitchery Stories fan club so you can get an email when a new episode is released. It's a quick and easy way of listening and of keeping up with any news and offers from our lovely guests. Please visit stitcherystories.com to join the fan club. Of course, if you have iTunes, then subscribe there to automatically get new episodes, and why not leave us a review and rating whilst you are there. So that is the end of our Stitchery story for today. So keep stitching, keep smiling, and keep creating your very own Stitchery stories.